conversation. We're leading off the event with a conversation about regionalism. And the Dallas-Fort Worth region is one of the most powerful regions in the country. And what's happening in Dallas and in Fort Worth is quite remarkable. And we wanted to start today with leaders of the college and universities that are driving the growth in this region. And I wanted to start here with a little introduction and let them introduce themselves. Chancellor Justin Lonon is leading the Dallas College University, and I'd like to start with you, Dr. Lonon.
Yeah, well, first of all, welcome to each and every one of you to Dallas College. We're glad to host and appreciate the YTexas team. And so I'll start with this building. This facility really is here to ensure that we're engaging with the community, providing the skills needed to help support workforce in this community. And we're blessed to have a great relationship with the Garland Chamber of Commerce, which is housed here. We're also blessed that the CEO of the Garland Chamber of Commerce is also the chair of our Board of Trustees at Dallas College. So Paul Mayer, Paul, thank you for being here and the work you do every day in this community. And we got several members of our leadership team that are here. Dr. Ahdieh is president of our Eastville campus, and he leads the manufacturing sector for the entire region, as each of our campus presidents are leading different sectors. And Dr. Veronique Tran over here, one of our vice provosts who leads one of our schools that does a lot of the work and activity in this building. But the Dallas College is our 7 primary campuses all over Dallas County, community campuses like this one, over 130,000 students. And the beauty of Dallas College is when you walk into one of our classrooms, what do you see? You're going to see that 17-year-old dual credit student that is earning college credit while still in high school. You're going to see that traditional student who just graduated from high school and came in to our doors. Maybe we were their first choice, their last choice, their only choice, but we are the path of opportunity for them. You'll see little Johnny who went off to UT and had a good time, but he's back home getting his head on straight and focusing a little better. Some of you may recognize little Johnny in the mirror. And then you'll see the mid-career student who's trying to retool, retrain, learn something new to stay competitive in the job market, on and on and on, to the gray-haired grandmother trying to keep her mind fresh. That is the beauty of who we serve and what we do, and in doing so at scale between our dual credit offerings, our workforce certifications, our associate degrees, and we offer bachelor's degrees as well. And so really, I've been with Dallas College now for 19 years, and when I came here, I started off as my colleague from Lone Star that's out here. I started doing government relations for the college, and I was going to polish up my government relations skills, go back to the private sector, and make $1 kajillion. That was my plan. But what happened along the way is I fell in love with the mission and the impact of Dallas College. And so the work that our teams do every day, engaging with our business employers, the work our faculty do every day to educate our students, we know makes a difference and has an impact. And so we're excited to be part of this conversation today to talk about how we further that commitment to developing the workforce's future.
Excellent. We've got the away team here. Dr. Bobby Ahdieh is here from Texas A&M Fort Worth campus, and just an amazing story for the region. And Bobby, thanks for coming.
Great honor to be here, Thea. Thanks, Ed, for having me. Let me again commend YTexas really for the work it's doing. I even like the lapel pin point that getting us to think in a more systematic way about the ways in which we can collaborate, the ways in which, in this case, the theme today and this year for them, higher education and industry can collaborate to move economic growth forward. Really, I commend you for that. And I want to commend Dallas College, as I did when we spoke earlier, for being a real innovator in the higher ed space in North Texas and really kind of nationally as well. I also want to acknowledge, again, we have, raise your hands, some folks from the A&M team via here as well. that I'm excited to have with us. In terms of how I got here, I came to Texas in 2018. As they say, I wasn't born here, but I got here as quick as I could. I came to be dean of Texas A&M's relatively new law school at the time over in Fort Worth. Shortly after I got here, about 3 weeks in, I was meeting with the then mayor of Fort Worth, Betsy Price, and she said to me in the middle of a conversation about a different topic, so when are you going to break ground? And I said to her, on what? And she said, on your new law school building. And I said, well, no, Betsy, we're really focused on human capital. We're bringing in people, we're bringing in your students, faculty, and we're going to have a transformative impact that way. And her response was, but I saw pictures of it. And I said, I'm sorry, pictures of what? She said, your new building. And lo and behold, my predecessor didn't have the money or the political support or the will to build a building, but he thought if I just make a nice picture, miraculously it'll rise out of the ground. That's not the way it works if you haven't built a building. But I thought to myself, it's okay. I'm a good politician. I can manage the mayor of Fort Worth. This won't be a problem. But 2 days later, I was down in College Station with my boss, with the provost at the time, Carol Fierke, and in the middle of, again, a conversation about a different topic, she suddenly said, Bobby, if you say the word building, I will fire you on the spot. And I said to her, I've never even heard that word before. I'm not sure what that is. And I got in the car, drive back to Fort Worth from College Station. And for that 2.5 hour drive, all I could think about was the fact that some woman is going to fire me. Either the mayor of Fort Worth, if I don't build a building, and my boss, the provost, if I even talk about building a building. And the idea then emerged of this, what if we were doing something much more significant, much bigger than just a law school building? What if we were doing something that really added value to industry, that involved partnerships, so on and so forth? And we are now in the process, and I think we'll talk about this later on in some of the other questions, building this nearly $1 billion campus that really is innovation-focused, academic industry, so on and so forth. And so that's on why I'm here.
Excellent. Yeah, I think that leads us into the conversation, which really is, I think the big question is, what are your goals as leaders to make as big of an impact in the region as you can, which of course, expands statewide. You've got large systems with many, many campuses and a lot of businesses in your respective regions. Dr. Lonon, what's the impact plan?
Yeah, well, so, I think it starts off, first of all, with the realization that higher ed has not always been as responsive as we need to be and should be to business and industry. And this is where I get in trouble sometimes with my higher ed friends when I say higher education is an old, broken, dated, antiquated model that has to change. We reimagined the Dallas County Community College District in the Dallas College. So we are reimagining higher education, again, at a significant scope and scale not found in very many regions. And so it is that intentionality, first of all. The leaders in this room that are helping to challenge the norm about just the way that higher ed historically does business. I referenced that we have a sector strategy that, again, each of our campus presidents are leading 9 different industry sectors for the entire region. It's not about what programs are offered at their local campus. It's about assigning and connecting talent and engaging business leaders, industry leaders, putting them in the driver's seat, where Dallas College may or may not be the answer. That's not necessarily the point, but we want to understand what the needs are and how can we help contribute or support to address those needs. And so I think, we work really hard to ensure that we're piercing that academic bubble to bring the real world into the work that we do in a very intentional way. So at the end of the day, people can get the skills they need to get into jobs or whatever path that people are going to take. If they're going to transfer to one of our amazing university partners to continue on from there. And I will say on the regional side, the regionalism, the collaboration side, we're really blessed in North Texas that we have such great collaborative relationships amongst colleges and universities that is not viewed as competitive because the reality is the needs and challenges of our business employers and of our students they don't stop at the county line here. And so last year, we at Dallas College partnered with Tarrant College. Our colleagues over on the other side of the county line put a partnership agreement together to support those that may need to go back and forth with, reciprocal tuition agreements, other things. Tarrant College has amazing programs over there, and if that meets the needs of business employers and students, I want to help support them to get there. So it's not a competitive sort of environment. When you start with what problem are we trying to solve in the region, then we all just lean in to try to figure out how to solve them.
So I'd say again, let me pick up where I left off in terms of impact. So this campus that we're constructing, the core notion that emerged was, look, there's a desperate need for kind of additional structures to foster innovation, entrepreneurship, economic growth, so on and so forth. And were there ways that we could kind of bring higher education assets together with industry needs in a way that moved both institutions or both categories of institution forward? Obviously, in workforce development, our particular focus here, but also in terms of research and development. So the reality is that, even the longest term thinking company is not thinking 20 and 30 years ahead. It's just not the business model. It's not sustainable. Whereas higher education institutions are thinking 50 and 100 years ahead. That's our time horizon. So on R&D, if you can bring those together, both benefit, right? Companies bring kind of the more short-term returns, and then the universities bring the kind of the longer-term time range, but also just in terms of the workforce generally, so who do we need to educate? What degrees do we need? What certificates we need? So on and so forth. So that was the notion. We started off by doing a needs assessment, strong focus on Tarrant County, but we did a decent amount over in Dallas County as well, to basically sit down with probably about 100 companies and ask them, what do you need? Like, tell us, what are the gaps in terms of research collaborations, research needs, workforce training needs, so on and so forth, that we could help meet? And I'll say more about maybe later on about the collaboration across universities. But we then said, well, which are these that are already being met by others? If they're being met by other universities, no need for us to do them. But then the notion was, all right, let's take these together. And we identified a set of what we call hubs. So there's 7 of them altogether. We're focusing a little bit more on some than others. They range from sort of broader ones. So workforce development is one of them. The commercialization, startups, entrepreneurship is a second one. But then 4 of them are industry specific. So we identified what are particular industry sectors where in Dallas County and Tarrant County, there's a need and opportunity that we can tap into. So aerospace and aviation is one of those. Healthcare innovation is another of them. Media entertainment is a third one, and agriculture and food innovation is a fourth. And the idea was that let's create these hubs that really are designed to bring industry needs and industry opportunities together with what higher education can offer, right? And then these hubs become not just for A&M, but for other partner academic institutions and for an ever-expanding group of industry partners, ways that we can learn from all of you, but we can also add value to what you're doing in industry.
So what are some success stories that you've experienced so far?
Well, I think about like the evolution of some of the work we've done, that Dr. Tran and her team and in our School of Manufacturing and Industrial Technology lead, like with Amazon. The partnership that we have with Amazon, I'll tell you, when Amazon first came to the area, came to the region, we were still kind of in that mindset of here's what we offer. Let us know if that works out for you. And we quickly evolved that to how can we help design what you need. And so we got a robust partnership with them that is providing people skills in mechatronics and providing an apprenticeship for them. And I think where I'm finding deeper engagement with industry leaders is helping develop those apprenticeships, those earn and learn models, those work-learn models, because the reality is that our students have to work.
Yeah.
And so they might as well be working in an area of their field of study. And for employers, it's a little bit of try before you buy. But we have more apprenticeships in healthcare here at Dallas College and any other place in the country. You don't typically think about healthcare as a place for apprenticeships. But there are so many robust opportunities in healthcare. We launched the first teacher residency program in the state of Texas, and it's a teacher apprenticeship with our bachelor's degree in early childhood education. But it provides students an opportunity to earn while they're student teachers, and then go into a classroom. And so, a quick story with one of the participants in that: drove a school bus for 10 years. She loved students, loved teaching, or loved engaging with students, and always wanted to teach, but she couldn't get off that hamster wheel of life to be able to go pursue her degree. But thanks to this program, she could. So if you can take that passion of the chaos of the school bus into the classroom, that's what we need more of. So looking for those opportunities with business employers to develop more of those type programs, I think is going to be key as we look ahead.
And I guess I'd kind of answer two levels. First, in terms of the individual kind of industry engagement things, I've been struck by the kind of the broad range of them. So, everything from big hospital system that came to said over the next 30 years, this is what we're going to need in terms of our workforce, ranging from top to bottom, not physicians, but everything short of the physicians themselves. This is what we're going to need. Can we partner with you in providing those, in meeting those needs? That's one sort of element, one example. Big government, aerospace contracts, and I can probably figure it out, that have come to the area, sitting down with the leadership of those teams to say, what is that going to entail in terms of your being able to scale up? And this is, these are 30-year contract, these are long-term projects. Over that period of time, what are you going to need in terms of scaling up, in terms of research strengths, right? Areas of focus and focus research. Is A&M doing stuff in that space that we can create a node of it here in North Texas that makes this that much more attractive a place for you to build and to grow? And then again, kind of totally different, the company, again, healthcare company, came to us and said, for our young hires, the people we want to hire in their 20s, 30s, who are kind of innovative, tech folks, whatever else it is, our physical location is not an attractive location. We cannot recruit them, in part because they come to our physical space and they go like, you're on the side of a highway, not an attractive place. Can I put that entire operation, potentially up to 1,000 people, in your downtown campus, right? Again, makes sense. It's an innovation campus, academic industry, so on and so forth. And this was out of nowhere. CEO came to us. We knew him, but he came to us and said this. Wasn't really about collaboration. It was just physically where they sit. That for them, he'll attract better people and stronger people if they're sitting in the middle of an innovation district and at an innovation campus. So those are a few examples of concrete ones. The broad one I'd say is that, look, what we are seeing, and I do think this goes to the regional component too, is we made some early trips up to Tyndall Square. Some of you may know Tyndall Square, Cambridge, Massachusetts, right outside Boston or alongside Boston. The MIT, Harvard, starting 40 years ago, started to build out this innovation presence. And really now it's probably the leading biotech innovation hub, at least in the country and maybe in the world. 50 years ago, it was basically a brownfield. It was MIT sitting in the middle of this almost empty area. And maybe later on in Q&A, I'll tell you the story of how that happened. It's kind of interesting. But there was nothing there. And they had the idea, how do we leverage these higher ed institutions to grow, to attract things? Now suddenly every tech company, every major company in the country has space there because they now want to be part of that ecosystem. We can do the same thing here. That really is reflective, though, of the kind of the breadth of regionalism and the breadth of university institutions. It turns out the reason Boston as a whole has been successful is not because of MIT and not because of Harvard. It's because of MIT plus Harvard plus Suffolk plus Northeastern plus Tufts plus Boston University plus Boston College. He's going to cut off my mic, so let me stop. But I can keep going with that list for about 30, 35 places. We have that opportunity here, right, to not just, preserve our growth, but to accelerate our growth in a significant way. To do that, though, we have to embrace the role of higher education in advancing economic growth, innovation, and entrepreneurship. So,
which leads to the next question: what is the role of the university going forward? We look at economic development now. The regions are using so many different assets, sports franchises, of course, colleges and universities, companies are getting involved. The story about why a company should choose a particular city is a lot more than what it used to be. So, yeah, I mean, what is the role of the university and the college in the future?
Sure. Well, true. I'll go quick. Again, follows from that. When you go out and you did, once upon a time, my research was around kind of jurisdictional competition, whether for businesses or for other things. And when you look at the research, we talk about tax incentives and tax breaks and, other aspects of the environment, low regulatory burdens, lower taxes. But when you actually survey the relocation folks for companies, they will tell you the most important thing in determining that is workforce. And the second most important thing on their list is workforce. And the third thing is still workforce. And then there's other stuff after that, right? So it turns out all the stuff that we spend a lot of time thinking about turns out to be a pretty marginal aspect of these. We talk about them because they make the press, right? But in reality, the question they're asking, and not even at our level, although Dallas College, I'll give credit, we're doing some of it too, are pushing back into the K-12 level too, but they're asking, what is the state of your K-12 education system? What is the state of your community college system? What's the state of your four-year college? And what's your graduate? So I do think, again, for us to be smart about this over time, we've got to step into that. And again, I commended Dallas College earlier. You heard the Chancellor talk about kind of what they're doing. I think A&M is doing this too, but being entrepreneurial and creative about figuring out what are the needs that industry has. That doesn't mean we have to abandon our core mission or abandon kind of other aspects of what we're doing, but recognize that piece, and an important piece of what we're doing is of it. That doesn't come easily to us because, again, we're all, like all human beings, settled in our ways. But I think the more higher education does that, the more industry recognizes and says, wait a minute, why am I training? Another success story. A Fortune 500 company in the area, we were meeting with their leadership, CEO and others, and then the CEO, out of nowhere, it wasn't what we were proposing, turned to his folks and he said, why do we do all of this training in-house? Like, we have no expertise in training. We are experts in the content of what we do, but not in the training. Why don't we figure out a way to partner, in this case with A&M, but it could be Dallas College, UTI, saw in the room, Lone Star, others, about that. So that's what I think is.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. First of all, higher ed, we have to get out of our own way sometimes. And, the reality why some of these big companies create their own training programs or training centers is because they've tried and hadn't gone well, or they've lost faith in higher ed. And so, last year I challenged the college that we need to begin to think like and prepare to be a 22nd century college. Now, that's 75 years away. Nobody knows exactly what that's going to look like, but we know what it's not going to look like. It's not going to look like what's in the rearview mirror. And so, absolutely, when we engage with site selectors and others, it is workforce. And we are really focused on how to get to yes in all of that, because it's important to the community, it's important to the region, that we want to be a solution. We don't want to be a barrier to that. And so I think, increasingly, as I said earlier, being intentional about understanding what the needs are out there, and helping to align accordingly. But again, to really challenge the norm with what we do, because again, even the sector strategy that I talked about, and my colleagues from Lone Star and the Houston Community College, which are amazing colleges, are familiar with, and many of you in business and industry may be familiar with, hey, come to a industry advisory board meeting with one of your programs at your local college, and we'll have a box lunch once a year, and we'll talk about things, and then, say, cool, see you next time. That doesn't work anymore. The world is changing too rapidly, too quickly. The needs are changing. Skills are changing, what business employers need. So again, engaging at that high level with a degree of intentionality to understand, what do you need today, tomorrow, next year, 5 years, help us think about how to prepare and create programs for jobs don't even exist yet, but at least begin to lean into that path. So again, that's a long-winded way of saying just pay attention and be intentional about understanding what the needs actually are.
No, I think it's having a seat at the table, maybe more so now than you have in the past. So getting ahead of the trends, right? If there is a company looking at the area, you're actually going on trips and visiting them before they get here, so you're ahead of it.
Well, I mean, I think, in a environment where I think we're up to 15 or so governors that have said, for state employees, in many instances, we're not even going to require degrees. When more employers, when some of the talking heads are talking about a skills-based economy, we're not sure what the role degrees or various levels of credentials play in a skills-based economy. For hundreds of years, higher ed, we have been the great arbiter of this piece of paper means you have value in the world and in the marketplace. And business employers and society are going, well, I'm not sure if you're the one that should be deciding that. And that's because, again, we've not always reacted, we globally higher ed, and we've stayed in our little bubble. But as you hear in this conversation, and our colleagues that are in the audience that are pushing against that, and it's not abandoning our core principles or the core work we do. It's essential in a changing society to not just demonstrate relevance, but demonstrate that we're providing opportunity for what people need.
I mean, I think the fact that you're all here, quite honestly, people are asking, how do you get the chancellors? How do you get the presidents? And it's actually easier than you think, because when you tell them what you're looking to do and what the community needs, they're raising their hand and saying, yes, we need to be there. Whereas in the past, I think it was a little different. They just weren't as active within the community. So really, I mean, I think the closing question here is, how do we take a conference like this and turn it into action from a statewide basis, right? We've got people from Houston and Austin and the Panhandle and the border, all interested in what's happening in DFW. My gosh, it's generating, we've got stock exchanges coming here and everyone wants a piece of the action. So how do we do it statewide?
Well, I mean, certainly in this region, there are 300 people a day, over 300 people a day moving to North Texas. And so, the challenge in that is, to ensure that we're not just importing jobs, but we're helping to upskill people where needed so they can be competitive within those jobs. When a Toyota is considering consolidating their North American headquarters from California and Kentucky and moving here to North Texas, they know how many accountants are going to make that move with them. But for every one of those accountants, they need 10 accounting techs to support that work. And so that's great opportunity for people here locally if they've got the skills to go into those jobs. And I think, again, it goes back to the collaboration part, that we collaborate really well in this region. We even play nice with our friends from Houston and the Gulf Coast because, again, you start with what problem we're trying to solve. And I think the environment here in Texas certainly is there's a reason people are coming to Texas. And so I think the work that's being done at the state level, the partnerships that we all have with the Workforce Commission and the coordinating board, and conversations like this, which you're bringing together, Ed, with YTexas, to bring leaders together to connect even deeper, how to provide those opportunities for collaboration is ultimately going to be key to all of this, because it's easy to stay in our little areas, our little bubbles, and go, boy, there's so much going on in my area. Let's focus on that. But this sort of thing, fosters deeper connections that, again, I think from a statewide level, statewide perspective, just keep doing more of this thing and bringing smart folks together.
So I'd just quickly say, again, first, one broad thing in terms of kind of the statewide impact is, I do think, again, we're at an interesting moment with higher education. Everything we've talked about, I think, is correct. I believe it. In terms of the value of higher education, we're also at a moment when higher education is a punching bag in a problematic way, right? Now, again, some of it, to the chancellor's point, is that we brought that on ourselves right? The less responsive you are, the less engaged you are, the less present, to Ed's point, that you are, the more you become a target, right? And that's, sure, because, somebody's going to get punched, unfortunately, in politics. And so, but I do think, again, to the extent to which on the industry side, what you see is value that your local institutions, your statewide institutions are bringing, making sure people know that. This is a little bit like, when they do the surveys of Congress. Congress has a terrible approval rating, but everybody loves their own congressman, right? So everybody loves their own community college or four-year college or where they went to school. It's higher education in general that's a cesspool that needs to be shut down, right? But that's a problem, right? Because again, it makes it much harder for the chancellor, for my bosses, for myself, to do our jobs. So that's one thing I would say in terms of statewide impact. I think much of the Texas miracle can be credited to higher education in Texas, not right now, but over a 10 and 20 and 30-year and 40-year period. Let's make sure we don't forget that is one thing I'd say statewide. Second thing I'd say is, look, again, we do have a tendency in time. I got here as quick as I could. I say, but because I wasn't born in Texas, I haven't internalized the idea that because your football team beat my football team 42 years ago, I hate you. I'm like, what? Wait, why do I hate you again? Again now.
Well, you said that to me the other day. I pointed out our team's really not won in a while.
So that's why we love each other. But I do think again we got to get past that. The reference I've been giving is A&M and UT Arlington are collaborating in a pretty significant way in a research initiative in Dallas. So this is A&M College Station, UT Arlington research partnership in Dallas. That I think is exemplary of the way in which we should be thinking statewide. What are the opportunities we can generate statewide through that kind of higher ed collaboration? And then the same thing applies coming to our regional and our statewide theme. Comes more generally. When COVID first hit, I was asked to be by the mayor. I was asked to be on this commission, Fort Worth Now, it was called, that was meant to talk about how do we move forward after COVID. How do we get through COVID and then move forward on the back end in terms of economic growth and recovery and development and the like. And on the very first call, it was a Zoom call, obviously, I said, look, we keep talking, but the call is all about Fort Worth. I said, we need to, in thinking about our future, we need to think about Dallas as well. And what I came up with was the way to summarize this. I said, one of the most valuable assets of Fort Worth as a destination for companies is Dallas. And I said, and to be clear, one of the most valuable assets for Dallas is Fort Worth, right? It turns out the metro region is what creates the critical mass that makes a company want to be here. Now multiply that times Texas. So rather than Dallas hates Houston and Houston hates Dallas and all of us hate Austin and so on and so forth, if we can actually think in some systematic way about how do we advance this Texas miracle as a whole. Doesn't mean that, we don't want business in Dallas and someone doesn't want business in Fort Worth and so that's great. But it turns out this really is an all ships rise situation. So if we can think in those terms, I think it becomes incredibly transformative for higher education and for all industry as well.
It's great. Well, and everything starts at the top. So the fact that we've got a great love fest conversation between Fort Worth and Dallas is pretty amazing. And from the university and college standpoint, it means lots of community. These two and many of the other folks in this room are accessible and available. And I think what you're going to find is that they want to talk to you. They want to talk to the businesses. They want to find out what you're doing and how they can get ahead of the trends. That's the tone of all of the panels that you'll hear today. When we conclude here in a minute, we will have a little break, and then we'll have a breakout session in the other room on the topic of energy, the future of power and energy. And here we'll be talking about manufacturing, what's being made here in Texas. So again, both of you, thank you very, very much. And they'll be here to take some questions after the panel.
Thank you. Okay. Great. Thanks, Ed.
Thank you.
Go ahead.